Why? Because we put buyers in them that need time, not renters with a dream to someday buy. This is an enormous difference. That's that team. The team on the smart real estate coach side that coaches students and does deals with students, because we actually rev share. Like we're in the same goal mode as them. We want to get properties and get properties cashed out, not sell them a product.
This is Dana Samuelson with the American Gold Exchange. You're listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast with Mike Cavagioni.
Watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons. If you're listening to our podcast, go leave us a 5-star review. All of our links can be found in the video description or show notes below. Hey, welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cavagioni, and today's guest is Chris Prenfontaine. So Chris, super excited to talk to you, especially somebody that's all the way over on the East Coast, and I'm stuck all the way out here, pretty far to the West. But hey, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, buddy. I wouldn't call Hawaii stuck, but I'll go with it for now. But I wouldn't call that stuck.
It is an island. It is an island.
So we're both on islands, a little different.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, I want to start this off the same way I start every podcast episode, so me and my guests can know you a little bit better. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us your story. Who is Chris Prenfontaine?
Yeah, so I'll do 32 years New England style in about 5 minutes. You tell me what piece you want to go back to, but I've been at this since 91, so I'm dating myself. I've been at it 32 years plus now. It's ran the gamut from, I was building homes back in the 90s, what I called spot building. We didn't use banks back then. I was in my 20s. I was too naive to figure out what I was trying to accomplish. It was a little bit offbeat, meaning I would go to the landowner. I'd ask them to put a sign in their yard. I'd go to all the vendors and I'd say, hey, we're going to build this house and you're going to wait for your money until it gets cashed out. And they all did it, given the market conditions. But I look back now going, wow, there was some big kahunas there without knowing it. Then I actually owned a brokerage. I had never done that. Owned a brokerage with conventional realtors. I would push it to high production realtors or they couldn't stay, but we had a conventional brokerage. Sold it to Coldwell Banker in 2000. That brought me up to the crash of 08 because, Mike, I was doing my own properties. I was coaching US and Canada, but I got annihilated after 2008. It took me exactly, I remember it like it was yesterday, from February of 08, when like a light switch was thrown, till February of 12 to dig myself out of that. Part was financially, of course, but the rest was mentally, just a mess mentally, thinking that I couldn't do it or what the heck happened. So then that put us to where we are today. It made me revisit what the heck are we going to do if we're even going to get back into real estate, because I was fried. And so we came up with some rules, really. So the protocol would be, all right, no using banks. We don't use banks now. We don't take out loans. We never sign personally. We only buy property, owner financing, lease purchase, and subject to existing financing. 3 ways. That's it. They don't involve banks ever. I'll tell you, putting my head on the pillow at night now is a lot different than pre-08 and 08 when I was on loans personally and the banks come knocking, right? That's what they do when things go wrong. So all that to say, we've built a system that allows investors and our family team still to buy property literally in any market and understanding how to pivot in any market. So with all the uncertainty and chaos going on now, we love it. Absolutely love it. The demand is through the roof for what we're doing. So I kept saying, we have a family company, myself, my son, Nick, my son-in-law, Zach, and then we coach people. That's just property. Then we coach people all around North America to do the same.
Okay. Gotcha. So a lot to unpack there. I was taking notes as you were going. It looks like a lot of things completely changed for you after 2008, as it did for a lot of folks, right?
Yeah.
But before that, I find it amazing when you were describing how you would buy this land, put the sign on it, and then go to the contractors and be like, yeah, we're going to pay you after everything's done. Yeah, go ahead and try that today. That's not really going to work out too well.
I don't know. So, maybe if the market slows down, I don't even think you'd still get away with it. I remember today, I remember today the look on the lumber guy's face. He became a really good friend. But the look on his face when I said, yep, we're going to build these, and they were small. We're going to build them in 90 or 120 days, and then you'll get paid. And he chuckled, but he got in bed with us and did it.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. Obviously, built a great relationship out of that if you guys are still friends today. So that's awesome. And obviously, it was some good work. Okay, but 2008 came around and you had to completely change everything, right?
Yeah.
So now it's no more banks. You don't want any more banks involved. You want to do everything yourself. So now you're doing everything either subject to owner financing, cash, right? You don't want to borrow money from the banks. Do you do any private lending? Do you take money from?
I private lend within my companies, right? But I don't know. I don't do it outside of that, and I don't borrow from private lenders. On occasion, we'll have our attorney or our CPA or someone go, hey, I got some money, and I'll go get a deal together for them. But our main thrust is helping people buy without, I won't say no, but little to no cash, and then no banks.
Yeah, I think in today's market, that's really important, right? Because you're looking at what's happening right now with the banks, with interest rates, and everybody's talking about how high they are. And honestly, if you look over the last 30 years, it's not that bad. The issue is that the home prices have gone up so much. So when you see these higher interest rates, 7-8%, it looks like it's a lot of money. But realistically, in the big scheme of things, that percentage is it's not too crazy. But anyway, so you don't really have to worry about that, right? Because that's not the way that you go about it. So could you tell me a little bit about your strategy for purchasing homes? So I know you had mentioned owner financing, sub 2. Can you just go into that a little bit and share with us, like from start to finish, like what is it that you look for in a deal that makes you say, okay, I think this is one I can attack?
Yeah. And let me comment too. You said something real important, and then we'll go to that question if I don't forget it.
For
So
sure.
you said something with the interest rates. Where the 50-year average is in the sevens. I forget, it's like 7.2 or 7.7. It's in the sevens.
Yeah.
So we're around the 50-year average right now. I'm not saying it's going to stay there, but we are right now. So I agree, it's not that high, but people have been used to some craziness. Now, on that note, I'll go to your question because this is really interesting. When we buy owner financing, we primarily look for free and clear properties. About a third of the properties in the United States are free and clear, roughly. So we look for free and clear. In doing that, we're able to pay top dollar so that they accomplish their goal. But big caveat, we do it with principal only payments. So that's 0% interest. Super important right now. And then I'll go back to the avatar and what we look for and all that. And then when we buy sub 2, think about it. We can literally target properties that were purchased with interest rates between that low that it got to of 2.25 to 5 every week in the community. We're getting subject to deals on properties with that kind of interest rate. That's unheard of. No, I don't care, to your point, what the rates are doing. In fact, the more it gets chaotic and uncertain, the more sellers come to us and the more students come to us to get it done. Now, here's what we do with the sellers, to your question. People say, how do you convince a seller? They always say this to me, students will. And the answer is we don't ever convince. It's no different than you going to an accountant, a body shop, a dentist. You go there to solve something, right? Fix or solve. It's no different. The building I'm standing in right now, talking to you, was bought from an owner who was quite savvy. He was one of the largest landowners in this area on the island. It's a 3-town island. He passed away, sadly. But we bought this in 18, free and clear, he was. So he became the bank, in case anyone's listening, and owner financing is new. We just paid him every month. Now, he was a little more savvy, so he didn't want to go no interest always, but here's what he agreed to. He was smart, it was a win. We did 18 full months, Mike, no interest. At that 18-month point, we took it and amortized it over 30 years with a 5.2. Again, not too bad. So what are we always looking for? Solving a problem or helping them accomplish a goal they can't do in the open market? Why couldn't he accomplish that in the open market? He wanted estate planning, tax planning, and he wanted to leave because he did pass away. I think he knew something was up. I didn't. He wanted to leave his son and his daughter with a cash flow stream because they're a bank versus a building, right? It was smart. And he had realtors. He said, Chris, I sat in this office with him, right where I am. It was his office. And this is a busy road. They call it $1 Million Mile. And he said, realtors would come in. He has a sign in front that says for sale by owner financing. And realtors would come in and say, I got a full price offer. He said, no, I don't. That's not what I want. I want a game plan to help me with my trust and my estate planning. So we're always looking to solve problems. Let me give you another real story, but there's hundreds, if not thousands. Couple down Cape Cod, it's a resort area near us. They're upside down. They're arguing. It's not amicable. They're 2 months in arrears. They need to dump the house. Financially, unlike a free and clear owner, they need relief. So we catch up arrears of only $4,000. They go their separate ways. We buy the house subject to with an interest rate of 4.25. That's a good deal for us. They're happy. We solved their problem. See, so it's just solving problems. That's all we're doing when we look for a seller.
Yeah, no, absolutely love that. And those are some really good examples, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things that when I talk to real estate investors, and as a real estate investor myself, your number one thing, it's not about going out and just buying a bunch of properties. It's actually going out and being a problem solver, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're solving someone's problems, the side benefit to that is acquiring a new property, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's huge. And I really appreciate you sharing it in that aspect, because I think a lot of people don't really look at it that way. They just look at, oh, okay, it's just here's your strategy of how you do it. No, if you look at it from a problem first perspective, okay, what is the issue that you have here? What are you trying to do with this property? Okay, cool. Let us work with you to make it happen that way. You want to be able to provide cash flow for your family in the event something happened to you or something's going on. Boom, we've got that solved. We'll do that for you. And then on top of that, you get a smoking deal because you were able to work it out that way and give them what they wanted. So it benefits everybody. It's like a win-win. Something like that I think is huge. So Chris, so those two examples were great. Now, you said that your team is finding these deals, or your students too, they're finding deals like this weekly. So what
Yeah.
is it that you guys do to actually seek out and find these deals? I know you said 1/3 of the homes in America are fully paid, right? They're ready to go. So how do you get in front of those people? How do you get in front of that audience?
So when someone's new, just in case you're a new investor, or frankly, I haven't mentioned shit, if you're a realtor and you went through what I went through, or you're having a great career, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of things, a lot of pieces of the pie being left on the table. I didn't know that when I was a realtor. I wish I knew this then, because you wouldn't leave any pieces of pie down. We'll talk about that. The first thing I do when people come in is I want to get them on a basic foundational lead generation, and that is a service that gives them expired listings that didn't sell with the realtor, no different than most investors, for sale by owner and for rent by owner. Those are the basics. And then if they either have bigger goals or their area just isn't producing what they need for leads in that list, those 3 lists, then we do what we call niched lists. And one of them is free and clear, of course, that you just alluded to. One of them might be, you can get any listing, but one of them might be any property bought between, say, 19 or 20 and 22, because you're going to get that low interest rate. You can even stipulate in less than 10% equity. Now you got a classic sub-2 deal, because they're going to need relief perhaps if they want to sell. So niche lists, and then the 3 basic foundational things. And we always teach them, probably good to know this, we teach them to go within 50-mile radius of wherever they live, because a lot of niches, rightfully so, like apartment buildings and whatnot, will teach time the market or go geographic areas and move around. And that's good for some niches, not necessary without a niche. There's one thing, constant real estate, right? It's going to always change. And all you got to do is get good at the creative piece so you can stay right where you're comfortable. Or if you want to branch out because you have family elsewhere, great. But you can go wherever you want is the point, and not have to jump around.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, because that is a strategy that essentially can work anywhere, right? Even out here in Hawaii, where it's the market out here is insane and pretty much never changes except for the interest rates, right? The properties just keep going up in value. We saw like a small dip in the market, and then the very next month it was back up to where it was the month before.
Sure.
It's amazing. Okay, great. You find these niched out lists, looking for that specific data. I think it's interesting too that you're also looking at these properties that were purchased between 19 and 22. Are you able to pull properties that were refinanced during that time period too? Is that a way that you have access to get that as well?
Yep, you can. You can pull this data anywhere in the
Yeah.
US. Canada is tough, but you can pull it in the US pretty easily.
Nice. Yeah. Because even the ones, especially the ones that were refinanced, they probably have a lot more equity in them, and probably more to bite off of that they might be interested in actually selling. So that's awesome. Okay. Now, what does your team actually look like, Chris? So I know it's not just you said it's a family-run
Right.
business.
Right.
Who does what?
Yeah, no, good question. So just for context, when I came out of that ugly period, February of 12-ish, I started on my own, just so everybody knows. I get people go, what if I don't have experience? Or what if I started by myself.
Sure.
And then by about 14, my son was a realtor locally. And I said, hey, Nick, I can't handle the buyer side, because we dispose of these by going the rent to own route mostly. And we have a very fine-tuned, and unlike most educators, we actually cash people out like 2 to 5%, maybe 2 to 10% default, but that's really low. So I needed his help with that. So he joined me. And then I brought an assistant in. Nick, my son, and Sue, my assistant, then now runs the whole office and all the properties. They're still here. From a property side of things, we have them, and then we have my son-in-law, Zach, who duplicated me in the field. And then we have another acquisitionist who came through one of our students, said, hey, I want to work with you guys. That's the property thing. Now, the property side of things can go from peak of COVID. We had 72 doors in our portfolio, mostly single families. And this is good to note for those of you not privy to rent to own. 72 doors during COVID. Most landlords were really panicking, right? During that, we had 4 problems, like 4 out of all of those. Why? Because we put buyers in them that need time, not renters with a dream to someday buy. This is an enormous difference. That's that team. The team on the smart real estate coach side that coaches students and does deals with students, because we actually rev share. Like we're in the same goal mode as them. We want to get properties and get properties cashed out, not sell them a product. And we do anywhere between a low of 6 or 8 and a high of 15 or 20 deals a month with students out there in the field doing exactly what you and I just talked about. That team is around 21 people. Again, started with me, started with this. You knew of the Navy College around this area because I think you mentioned something about that. Well,
Yeah,
there's a guy,
I went to, I was up there back
I remember you
in
said that.
2012. Yeah.
So this guy was over there, Kevin is his name, and he called me. This was probably 14. So I started the coaching business at 14. He called me and said, I heard about you. I'm going back to civilian life. I've been to Afghanistan 3 times. I'm done with it. He was a young guy. He said, can you teach me? I said, sure. Then after that, I wrote this little ebook and sent it out to this virtual assistant list that someone asked me to write. And that spawned the company, believe it or not. And now we've hit 3 years in a row, Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies. So we're in the several millions now. I think that first year I did 14 grand in business. It's hilarious to look back at, but that's how it started, just organically with the family and organically with people asking for help.
Yeah, I think that is one of the best ways to grow a business is organically, don't force it. Let it grow at its own pace. And you were able to see that explosion of growth thanks to your strategies and thanks to how you actually went into this business. Like you jumped right in, but you didn't jump in not knowing what you were doing. You went in with a plan, right? You knew what you wanted to attack. You knew what kind of strategy you wanted to follow. And I think that's important to annotate here, right? Because I hear a lot of people online and stuff, like a lot of gurus, and say, just start, just get into it, just jump right in. That could be a very costly mistake, right? I've seen it happen. I jumped right in and I bought this property and I got a 12% interest rate because I bought it with a private lender. And oh man, coming up in a couple of years now, it's ballooning and I don't know what to do. So
We get
you
those.
jumped right in, right? You didn't have a plan. So I think it's important really to educate yourself and really get a good understanding of what it is you're getting into before you actually get into it. So speaking of, I wanted to ask you about that as well. What are your thoughts on somebody that wanted to get started doing the strategy that you're doing today? What is a great way for them to actually educate themselves in this strategy so that they know what they're doing going into it? I'd rather pay a little bit of money now to get educated versus 3 to 4 to 10 times that because I made mistakes because I didn't know what I was doing.
I agree. Success leaves clues, right? And so, yes, I got 2 things to say based on what you just said. It's pretty interesting. So one thing that came to mind right away when you're talking was I'm big on free. There's too many marketers out there. You mentioned like gurus and I said educators. There's way too many that are really good marketers. We stink at marketing, but I can tell you how to do a deal. They'll market to you like promising you all these things tomorrow. What that breeds is people getting frustrated that they don't have the success tomorrow. It's not possible in real estate. And then they get frustrated and they keep trying new things and go into the shiny object. Instead, I say, okay, like today we'll do it. We'll give everybody who's listening a free book, like a physical hard copy, free book, and we'll pay for shipping. You won't. It's not one of those offers where you got to put shipping. Okay. Then you can go to YouTube and you can watch, I don't know what it's up to. Mike, probably 250, 300 deals. We post our deals, good, bad, otherwise. We post them so you can learn. Now, after you go through the free stuff, you can go, oh, that's for me. I like helping people. That's pretty cool. Or you'll say, this is not for me. And you didn't spend gobs of money doing it. Should you decide to go forward, then yeah, you want to seek out perhaps the academy, and perhaps you want to be more aggressive and go do deals. Our coaches actually do deals with them in the trenches. Interesting. My son-in-law Zach went and spoke to the Major League Soccer. They had a convention last week, 2 nights, and he said, "Yeah, Chris." I asked them, "Hey, what do you guys do when you want to learn a new skill set?" He was speaking their context because They wanted someone to come in and teach them, hey, what do they do after soccer? Like some of these guys, they're running out of money if they don't. So they want to learn real estate. So he went and spoke, and they were interested in smart real estate coach. And they said to him, right across the board, since we're 5 years old, when we want to learn something new, we go get a coach. These are guys that make professional money. So it's no different in real estate. I don't know why we think it's any different. So that was a long answer to a good question. I hope that made sense.
No, that's a great answer to that question, because I myself have used a coach before for for different things. I had a coach when I was a realtor, like making sure that I was doing things the right way. And I think it's important, right? If you have somebody that you can go back to, a coach or a mentor, whatever it might be, I think those are part of the most important things. So I talk about these 4 pillars that I have, right? And it's education, coaching and mentorship, networking, and then taking action, right? So these 4 pillars, these are the 4 things you need to be successful. And I feel like if you hit all of those, then you're gonna kill it, right? If you hit the first 3, you get coached, you get mentored, right? You get educated, you build a great network, but then you don't take action. Those other 3 don't even matter. So what matters is that you do all 4 of them. So I think it's really awesome though that you have some free resources so that people can check it out and say, hey, this might be something I want to get into, or they could look at it and say, you know what, this ain't for me. And they didn't spend any money on it. I think that's huge. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, just come take my course, pay for the course. And and if you don't like it, then fine, move on. You only paid $1,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to pay $1,000 for something I don't want to do. So
Yeah.
a lot of the folks that are looking to get started right now, they don't have that kind of money to just throw away, especially in today's environment with all this inflation that we have. That's why this podcast is around, is to help educate people and give them that financial literacy that they need, especially in such a tough time, right? We have record interest rates. We have record over the last 50 years, but we have record interest rates. We have record inflation. Everything is just so expensive. Cost of living has gone up so much. So it's really important when you can find something that is going to give you the actual value that you're going to put into it. It'll give you the value for the money that you spent into it. I find that anything that you're going to put money into, if it's going to give you more back on the back end, it's worth it. So
Especially predictable. Yep.
yeah, absolutely. So Chris, now you had mentioned that the markets don't really matter with your strategy, right? So you're looking at how chaotic it is right now and you're okay, bring it on, because this doesn't bother us at all with our strategy. Do you find that some sellers now have been more open to doing seller financing in this environment just because of how crazy it is versus what it would have been like maybe 5 years ago?
Yeah, not so much. Let me think where we are. Not so much 5, but the only time it got a little harder, and then I'll go back to the beginning to now. Beginning of COVID, March of 20, I never forget. March and April, people were absolutely needed a guide. They were panicking. Our property taken, which we call it's putting under contract. We call it taken, went triple. Then that shut down because everybody was selling their own properties, right? That changed overnight. So it just got harder, not impossible for us to get properties. Now, yes, to your point, we have people calling us and our students from 2 years ago, from a year ago. The floodgates opened again. Expired listings are back up, as everybody knows. There's burnt out landlords who went through COVID. They don't want to go through another thing, another change. So there's all that going on. Then I'm noticing, interesting, we have some students in high-end areas, high end for these deals, maybe 1.5 to 3 million, who are savvy enough to know, hey, if I lock in my property now, this is a seller talking on terms with these guys, I'm not worried about the market sliding anymore. And so a lot of those savvy people are wanting to do owner financing. And I'm also hearing about large apartment buildings being done sub 2 with rates of 3, 4, 5%. Yeah, the demand's up. I think 24 will be historic in a way in our world for sure. We have communities, Mike, like wholesaler communities, fix and flip communities calling us. I'm talking thousands of students calling us saying, hey, can you come teach our community? And that's why Zach had asked to go talk to the MLS. That the demand is now, even though it's been out since forever, 1600s.
Yeah, no, Chris, that's awesome. We might have to get you out here to Hawaii sometime too, and talk to some of our folks out here. So
We'd love to.
all right. So actually, speaking of, I know that you guys are pretty diverse in what markets you invest in. Actually, that's what I want to ask you. What markets are you and your team currently in, or is it just, hey, we're everywhere?
Wherever they are, to what I alluded to earlier. So for us, we're just in New England. We have students that range from East to West Coast and into Canada. a little bit in Australia and UK, but mostly the Canada and US. So it doesn't matter. I want them to do business where they are, for sure. And some people
So,
have
yeah, to be
like
able to do it in your own backyard.
yeah, for sure. And some people have a nuance that, like during COVID, there was a girl in New York City who grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. So she thought, all right, I'm going to go there and visit my parents. I need a reason to do that and write it off. So she did a few deals there. It's things like that. But you don't have to be, you don't have to time anything. You don't have to worry about trying to beat anything. Just be where you are.
Okay, yeah, I love that. That's great. You can invest in your own backyard, or if you
Yeah.
want to travel somewhere else and write it off, do deals elsewhere,
Absolutely.
like that example you just gave. That's awesome. That's funny because she moved from Jacksonville up to New York. Usually it's the opposite. People are moving from New York down to Florida to escape
Did it
the
career
cold
wise.
winter months.
Yeah, she did it career wise. She was
Nice.
really great salesman with success for a timeshare company. And then when COVID happened, who wanted to be in the city? So she went back there, back and forth.
Okay, right on. Now, Chris, I want to ask you something about, because you said you're not the best at marketing, right? Because you're not out here trying to sell a dream to everybody. What is it that you do to actually acquire new students to show them how to do this strategy?
Believe it or not, most of our business came organically. And then the next step was the shows just like this and our own show. Because here's what I found. This is just one little niche, and then I'll be more broad. I found that if people, the learners, the constant learners, they'll listen to a great show like yours. They don't hang out for a half hour, 45 minutes when they're not into learning, right? That takes commitment. And so I found that the committed and serious people will then, when they come into a coaching program, be committed and serious. So that's one place we find them, just from podcasts and being out there. We do go to a lot of meetups in RIAs, the Real Estate Investment Associations. Zach, just for a brand new source, just went to the MLS. I said, I don't think anyone's doing things like that to help people go out and learn how to build a business. So there's two things that came to mind when you asked that. A lot of programs talk about doing a deal. I wish I could tell you that it's as easy as showing someone how to do a deal. That's the easy part. It's showing them how to create some freedom and lifestyle, and then showing them how to become an entrepreneur if they're coming from a W-2. That's the challenge. That's why some people do a deal in 30 days and some people take a year. It's not the deal, it's them. And we got to teach them how to get past that.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's what I wanted to hear, because I wanted to ask you, like, how much does someone's mindset play into
Oh.
the actual purchase of that first deal? Like, what is it? What are some of the things that you've noticed since you gave that example of somebody that
Yeah.
makes that first purchase or that first deal within 30 days versus the person that took a year to make it happen? What are some of the key differences that you've seen, Chris?
I can use the word coachable, but it's too broad, right? Because everybody go, yeah, I'm coachable, because they think they are. It's the mindset piece. We have, similar to you, had 4 things. We have a genius model, has 3 things: mindset, systems, and skill set. Frankly, the systems and skill set, easy to set up. It's the mindset piece. I think it's, depending on who you're talking to, I think it's over 95% of the game. Why? When I came through the crash, the 08 crash, why did it take me 4 years to get back in the market? I was a mess mentally, and nothing to do with the market. It was me. So the person that comes in for the 30 days and does a deal, not only was coachable, not only did everything we tell them to do or the coach tells them to do. And you probably say, why wouldn't everybody do that? Because some people go, here's A, B, C, D, I'll do B and a little of C, and I'd expect the same result. It sounds facetious, but it's accurate. So the mindset piece is huge. The third thing is we get polluted because of that stuff on the internet that I talked about earlier. So they come in, and if they're not listening carefully, they're thinking, I can get a deal done quickly because online I see these people doing this. And if they don't, they blame it on themselves. And now the mindset piece starts, right? The roller coaster. More applicable example: student comes in, gets a property under contract, it doesn't sell right away. Then they start mentally going, I don't want to get another one, because what if it doesn't sell? And then they start doubting themselves in the system. I could go on, but it's all mental. It's all mindset.
Yeah, no, Chris, that's super important. So again, as on many other episodes that I've talked about mindset with other guests, man, it is just so important, right? To make sure that this is something that you're ready to do, one, like mentally ready, but 2, that you're actually going to go out there and execute and make it happen and not let anything hold you back. So just because you have something under contract and it hasn't sold yet and doesn't need to stop you from getting the next one under contract. That's a great example. So I appreciate that, Chris. Now,
Yeah, Mike, can I say something else about that real
yeah,
quick?
absolutely, please.
So I'm definitely not alluding to the fact that if you have some mental challenges, that's going to stop you. What I am saying is, ask someone who's been through them. The second I picked my head up after 3.5 years and started asking people, that's when I had my breakthrough. I had two guys laugh at me. They literally laughed at the size of my problem that I thought was huge. And they began to tell me how they got through it. And I went, I can do this. So reach out. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, another great reason to have a mentor or a
Yeah.
coach, somebody that's been through some of the stuff, some of the challenges that you're facing now. I guess you could say give you the easy way out, but not really give you the easy way out. Just tell you, hey, this is how I got out of it. This is how I did it. Versus you trying to find that way and going through all the trials and tribulations and then figuring it out on your own might take a little bit longer. But when
Yeah.
you've got that experience in your corner, that's huge. And that's why you got to utilize your resources, right? Utilize your network, utilize who you know. So yeah, that's awesome, Chris. But what I'd like to do now is transition into something that I call the final round. It's
Sure.
where I'm going to ask you the same 4 questions I ask everybody that comes on the show. Helps give us a good idea of how you are under a little bit of pressure, which I can already tell you're going to crush this. So if you're ready to go, we'll get that party started.
Sure.
All right, let's do it. So Chris, first question of the final round is, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made when it comes to your finance or business life?
Riding that '08 roller coaster like it was never going to stop, like an ATM machine, but by far the biggest, and then the best outcome, obviously, but hardest.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, next question, Chris. You'll see these kind of tie into each other. Is what is something that you've learned that you wish you knew when you first started out?
Two things. One is there's always someone who's been there. I don't care where you are, what you're doing, what time of year, how old you are. There's someone that already did it. You just have to find them, especially with the internet today. Let's stay with that one. That's pretty pointed.
Yeah, no, I like that. Again, utilize that experience. That's important. That's huge. All right, Chris, do you have any tips or tricks that you would recommend to someone that is just getting started today?
I'll try to be broad, keeping everybody the listeners in mind. 3 things. One, I'm not so naive to think we're the only niche in real estate, right? So one, pick a niche in real estate that you go, yeah, I can get behind that. I like helping people, or I like behind the computer, whatever it is. Pick a niche. 2, in that niche, pick someone who's weathered some storms. We talked about today, but I'm talking about personally and business, because you will get some storms, right? It's okay. You need to be able to lean on them. So that's 2. And you want to be able to align with them, like values and morals, everything. Quick example on that step 2 is I don't want to go follow someone, me personally, that had some business success, but as a result messed up relationships or kids or whatever. That's not me. But so that's what I mean by that. And then third, once you find the niche and the person or community in the niche that you can relate to and you're okay with attaching to, put the blinders on for 3 years. 3 years, and you'll have a great experience.
All right. That's pretty solid right there, Chris. I appreciate that. So everybody, I hope you're taking notes right now. All right, Chris, and the final question of the final round, and I will preface this with besides your own, because I know you have both. Do you have a favorite business, investing, or real estate related book or podcast or both?
I'll go with podcasts. I have so many, but Ed Milet has become a friend of ours, and he's been on my show, and I have not been on his yet. I wish I was, but his show is absolutely amazing. If you have not listened to Ed's show, you should subscribe to it. There's a plug for you, Ed.
Yeah, no, that's a great recommendation. So he definitely has a great show, definitely a podcast I listen to as well. It's on my list.
Yeah.
So appreciate that recommendation. Okay, with that being said, that is it for the final round, Chris. However, I do have another question I want to ask you, and this is going to be the most important question I ask you throughout this entire interview, because like I prefaced that last question, besides your own, this is where I want you to share what you do have. And so I'd like you to share where people can find more information about you, website, any social media profiles we could follow. Where can we get your book? Where can we listen to your podcast? All of that goodness.
Oh, I appreciate that, Mike, very much. smartrealestatecoach.com. If you go to YouTube, if you go to Instagram, any one of the social media platforms, type in Smart Real Estate Coach. There's a ton of on YouTube. You have Deal Structure Sundays, Motivation Mondays, Q&A Thursdays that they've been running for 6 years now. I do have the free book. I'd love to give it to them. It's just go to wickedsmartbooks.com/AJ for Average Joe, AJF, the number 1. And then I don't know what the database is or the listener base, sorry, for realtors, but and age-wise, I don't know how many people know Dr. Joe Vitale. Him and I partnered on a program called the Multi-Million-Dollar Realtor. It's brand new. That's multimilliondollarrealtor.com/MDR. Joe's amazing. Joe spoke at our events. We became friends. I had dinner with him, and then we started filming some things together. He was in The Secret, for those of you that don't know him.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for the resources. We can find all your social media and everything on those pages, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to make sure I have those links in the show notes to make it easy for my listeners to just go ahead and click away or copy and paste. The only thing I ask my listeners, you guys know this, please don't do it if you're driving right now. Wait till you get to a safe place. Chris, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out today. So for those that are listening, we're recording on a Saturday. So Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time out today to have this conversation with me and our listeners and sharing such awesome information. I got some great notes here. I felt the responses that you gave are going to be something that's going to help people take action and be more intentional with what it is that they're trying to do if this is a path they want to go down. Greatly appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, to my listeners, I want to thank all of you so much for joining me and our special guest, Chris Prenfontaine, on the Average Joe Finances podcast. Go leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you liked about today's episode with Chris. Aloha from Hawaii, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.